Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another week of Wrestling with Wrestling. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, the best damn referee in all of wrestling, if you ask me, which implicitly you did because you're watching this show. My pal, Doc Gregory. Doc, how's it going?
That is awesome that you always tell people that I'm the best referee out there, and you know damn well that your check's in the mail. Uh, because I'm pretty good at self-promoting myself as well, but I don't like to brag about what if you just came to see me live, you would know for yourself.
Exactly. The reason why, Doc, I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again since I always hype you as a great referee, is that the reason why Doc is a good referee, in my estimation, in my opinion as a wrestling fan, is that he, as the referee, he works the match. He doesn't just stand around and wait for something to happen so he can start counting. Like, Doc is actually participating in the match, actively, emotionally. He's like watching what's going on. He's always involved. He works the match as a referee, just the same as the wrestlers work the match as wrestlers. So, kudos to you, Doc.
Thank
Hell
you.
of a referee. Well, we got a lot to talk about this week. We have SummerSlam results to go over. We have a very eventful episode of Monday Night Raw to go through. We've got a couple of other random topics that I have listed that we can talk about if we have time. And then, of course, our Legend of the Week is always in our WWE Network show recommendations. Let's start by going through our SummerSlam prediction results because we were tied this time around. We each got a total of 4 predictions correct. So we have a tie for our prediction results for SummerSlam. Let me just run down the results match by match just really quickly, and then we can talk about what we thought of SummerSlam in general and anything that stood out as being particularly great or particularly bad. The first match, well, there was a pre-show match that they didn't announce that we didn't have a prediction for, which was Rob Van Dam versus Cesaro. RVD won that one. And then the first match of the actual show was the Intercontinental title match, The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler. We both got that one wrong. We had both called that The Miz would retain, and The Miz lost. Dolph Ziggler won the title, which I was really happy to see. I didn't expect it to happen. Next was the Divas title match, AJ versus Paige. I got that one wrong. Doc called that one right. Paige won and regained the Divas title. Then there was the flag match, Jack Swagger versus Rusev. I got that one right. Doc had called that one wrong. I called for Rusev, and Rusev did indeed win the match. Not really a flag match, though. It was basically just a regular match where the winner got the flag raised of his country at the end.
I like that. I like that aspect that they did that too. I mean, I really didn't see how that match was really going to go down, but traditionally that's the way flag matches used to be. That if you won the match, then your flag would be dropped and your anthem would be playing. That's kind of almost old school. It was nice to see WWE do that.
Yeah, because I was thinking of when they had flag matches when Bret Hart was doing the Canadian hero gimmick. And those flag matches were more like a capture the flag thing, where like one corner would have the American flag and the other corner would have the Canadian flag, and it was like Bret Hart versus the Patriot, and you had to get the other guy's flag and take it back to your corner. So I guess that's what I was thinking of when I think of a flag match. But yeah, it was basically it was a decent match, you know. Next was one of the highlights of the show for me. I wasn't crazy about the finish, but I thought it was a really good match. The lumberjack match, Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins. And that was one that, again, I think we both got that one wrong. We had both hoped that Dean Ambrose would go over, but Seth Rollins won that one with some help from Kane. Next was Chris Jericho versus Bray Wyatt. Thankfully, we both called that one right. Bray Wyatt won that match. Bray Wyatt won a pay-per-view match, everybody. And then next was Brie Bella versus Stephanie McMahon. This was one that Doc got right and I got wrong. Stephanie won against Brie, and of course also Brie's sister Nikki turned on her, which Doc also predicted.
Yes, I did.
Yes, indeed. And next, Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. We disagreed on that one. I called that one right for Roman Reigns. Doc had predicted that Randy Orton would win that one, but Reigns did win the match. And then finally, we both called the main event correctly. We both called that Brock Lesnar would be the winner. I don't think we quite predicted that it would be as much of a squash as it was.
Wow.
But we both got that result right. So now that we've gone through the results, our prediction pool was a tie, 4-4. Doc, what did you think of SummerSlam?
I enjoyed the show the whole way through. I mean, I really couldn't take my eyes off of it, and they did a good build toward the main event. Bray Wyatt and Chris Jericho, they put on a great performance out there, and Bray looked a little rough around the edges though at SummerSlam. Like he was tired or some jet lag or some shit was going on. He just looked really ragged around the eyes.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I was very happy to see him pull out a victory there. That was really nice. Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose. What can I say about those guys? But they'll go out there and perform time and time again, and it really is like one of the highlights of the show for me when I know these guys are going to hook up and perform for us. So I really did enjoy the Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose match, the Lumberjack match. I love how he took out. I love how he jumps and takes out the entire mid card, and so they did come out with a little meme for that. I did notice when I rewatched it how Rob Van Dam is like on the outskirts of the whole crowd, and they don't go anywhere near him, but he just takes a back step and then his bump falls down. I do love those things because when there's a mass of people, I do look for the people that would not been affected whatsoever, and they still are taking bumps out there. So that's always funny to me. And of course, I am like you said, literally shocked with the Brock Lesnar John Cena match because I didn't really expect John Cena not to have any offense really whatsoever. I mean, he did have his comebacks, but Brock Lesnar just laid a beat down on John Cena like I have never seen, which I thought was awesome because that is exactly Brock Lesnar is getting a very effective push right now. They're letting him cut promos that I feel is part of his true personality. He goes out there. He's not doing anything too technical. He's throwing all those suplexes, belly to back suplexes, and he gets you on the ground. Does ground and pound. I mean, he just beats the fucking shit out of you. And I dig that about Brock Lesnar. He'll just throw you around, test you around like luggage.
That main event was incredible. And in a way, it was a perfect example of what we were talking about in last week's show. And we weren't talking about, we mentioned it a little bit with Brock and Cena, where we both kind of thought that it might not necessarily be like a great technical match. And we also mentioned it in anticipation of the Brie versus Stephanie match. That even though we don't think it's going to be a good match, we're really looking forward to seeing it. And that Brock versus Cena match is just a fine example of that sort of thing, where if you look at it technically, I mean, was that like a 5-star wrestling match? Not really. It was repetitive. It was just Brock suplexing him over and over. But I could not take my eyes off of it. It was gripping because Brock was so dominant. And like you say, I have never seen anything quite like that. I've never seen a main event match of a major pay-per-view where the babyface was the top star in the company, where it was booked to be that one-sided, where Brock just murdered him. I mean, even Cena's hope spots didn't have hope. Like, there was never a chance he was going to win that match. There was never a moment when you were watching it that you thought, oh, maybe Cena's going to come back and win this. It was all Brock. And, I mean, and kudos to John Cena for doing that, for taking that beating and for going out and doing that match and making Brock look like a fucking killer, look like invincible, because that's what he did. And I can't remember... I mean, Hulk Hogan never did anything like that. When Hulk Hogan put somebody over, he would always put somebody over, oh, it was just barely. They just barely beat the Hulkster. Or, it was, or like when he put over Yokozuna at King of the Ring in 1993, and there was like all these shenanigans on the outside with like a fake camera throwing a fireball at him. Like, Hogan never laid down and just let somebody beat the shit out of him the way John Cena did. And Cena is today's Hulk Hogan. You imagine Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6, where the Ultimate Warrior comes in and just fucking kicks the shit out of him for 10 minutes and pins him. That you would never have seen that. So it was a spectacle. It was incredible.
Hell, I was in literal shock that Ultimate Warrior got a clean pin on Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6 because I had never seen that before, him get cleanly pinned. It was always some type of shenanigans that got Hulk Hogan beat if he ever lost it, which was very rare before Ultimate Warrior beat him at WrestleMania 6. So, but let me also mention how much I loved Stephanie McMahon's outfit.
I knew you were going to say.
She looked like she was ready to come out there and kick some ass, and she looked good.
Yeah. And you know what? It wasn't nearly as bad of a match as a lot of people, including us, I think, were afraid it was going to be. It was actually a decent match. Steph had some decent timing in there, which is shocking considering that she hasn't worked. I mean, she was never a wrestler to begin with, and she hasn't even worked a match for probably, I think they said, close to 10 years.
About that.
Yeah. It was a really good little match, and yeah. So you called Nikki coming in and turning heel on Brie. What'd you think? How'd you think that went down?
I think the storyline at this point is going really well. They showed the post-SummerSlam show where they showed the footage of the Bella Twins coming in to the arena, and Nikki keeps trying to talk to Brie, and she's on the phone with Daniel at first and ignoring her, and then she finally gets her attention. And they're trying to talk about what's going to go on tonight at SummerSlam, and she gets another call. Nikki gets a text, and she looks at it, and Brie looks like she is interested, but then she gets another call, and she has to take it. And then Nikki is just standing there looking at the text, and then keeps looking up at Brie, and gets kind of just a little bit of a change on her face. So it was an interesting video to see after that. And I think the turn is coming well. I thought she came down there, and when she blasted her, it was good. Monday Night Raw opening, which we'll get to in a second. That was a hell of a crack shot across her face. But they're sisters. They're sisters. Me and my brother fought so hard when we were kids. Man, he punched me in my face as hard as he could. So I mean, that's what we do. We're siblings. We're not beyond kicking the shit out of each other.
Yeah, well, let's get ready and move on to Raw here. But I do want to mention also one more thing, because you brought it up as well in your when you gave your thoughts on the show, Doc. The lumberjack match between Ambrose and Rollins. I love the way they use the lumberjacks in a way that you don't usually see the lumberjacks used in a match like that, where traditionally old school lumberjack matches are the guy gets thrown out of the ring, and if he's a babyface and he falls out among a bunch of heels, the heels will like kick him a little bit and then throw him back in. And in this match, they go all the way out into the crowd, and the lumberjacks have to go out and bring them back. I've never really seen something quite like that before, where the lumberjack stipulation was sort of expanded from ringside to the whole arena area, where once they got fighting and brawling out into the crowd, the lumberjacks had to go drag them back. And then, of course, yeah, it all set up for that big spot where Dean jumps up on the top rope and takes out everybody. I thought it was a really fun match. It was one of my favorite matches of the night, actually.
A lot of photo opportunities for the crowd that night.
Yeah, definitely.
I've never seen half the mid-card just running around through the crowd like this. It's insane.
Right, you get your picture with everybody, or at least get to slap people, you know. I touched the Usos and I touched Fandango. They ran right by me.
I touched whatever the hell was on Damien Sandow's head. I don't know.
Yeah, what the fuck? Oh, yeah. Did you notice he was dressed like a lumberjack?
Yeah.
I mean, he had like the lumberjack hat on and a tartan sweater for some reason. I don't know why, but I guess because he's still sophisticated. He's still like a smart, sophisticated guy. So
he's a sophisticated lumberjack.
Yeah, exactly. That should be his new full-time gimmick. He should just be like, you know what? I'm not making any money in the WWE, so I took a part-time job as a lumberjack.
Yep. And after I go down, cut this, and after I go cut this redwood down, I'm gonna have a spot of tea.
Exactly. Poor Damien. At least he got on the pay-per-view.
Yeah. A lot of guys got on the pay-per-view that night.
Yeah. Blink and you'll miss him, but he's there. He was on SummerSlam. So let's talk about Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw was, in its own way, just as eventful as SummerSlam was. Most of the the sort of new threads that were brought up on SummerSlam continued on Raw. I actually watched the entire show, no Hulu version for me this week. I watched the full version. And I noticed that they have now fully incorporated the new WWE logo, the opening, the then now forever video package that opens all the shows now has the new pointy WWE logo. And I have dubbed it the WWE the animated series logo because that's what it looks like. It looks like if the WWE like guest starred on an episode of Batman the animated series, that's how they would draw the logo. Really simple and plain and sharp like that. So anyway, they were live from Las Vegas. SummerSlam, of course, had been in Los Angeles. Now they're in Las Vegas for the next night's Raw. And it opens with Stephanie McMahon trolling the fans by playing Daniel Bryan's theme music, but then coming out and doing the yes chant on her way down to the ring, wearing a Steph t-shirt instead of a yes t-shirt. I thought that was pretty funny.
That shirt better be available in Shop Zone because I am going to own the Steph shirt. That shirt was awesome. I love the way she's crazy if just like throwing it in people's faces and really ribbing them because that shit's funny to me.
I haven't checked to see if they're selling it, but they're crazy if they're not because tons of people would buy that shirt. And she tries to get a Steph chant going. The crowd reacts with no, which was pretty funny. She's in the ring going, Steph, and the crowd's out there going, no, which is just exactly the response you want from a heel like Stephanie. She goes over the SummerSlam results. She wishes John Cena a speedy recovery. She talks about Brock as being the new champion and how they're going to present him with a new championship belt later tonight. And then she calls out she calls out Nikki Bella to talk about Brie Bella because she says Brie Bella was actually the biggest of all the losers at SummerSlam. Brie was the biggest loser because not only did she lose her match, but she also got turned on by her sister, and now everybody knows just what a horrible person she is. And Steph also blames Brie for the alleged infidelity of Daniel Bryan. She says, well, Daniel Bryan's cheating on her, and it's because he knows what kind of a horrible person she really is. And then Nikki Bella comes out, and she loses her shoe on the way to the ring, but recovers nicely, picks it up, and puts it back on. Big "You Sold Out" chant from the crowd for Nikki. And Nikki gives the explanation promo where she explains why she turned on Brie. And it's all about Brie being selfish. And Doc, you mentioned how they kind of set that up with them arriving at the arena that the night of SummerSlam, where Brie was kind of into her own shit, and Nikki wasn't really getting paid any attention. Mm-hmm. And she talks about how Brie would used to taunt her about not getting married, and Brie was just a horrible person the whole time they've ever been growing up, and now it's Nikki's turn to shine and to turn and stand on her own 2 feet. Now she's free from Brie. And, of course, Brie comes out to get in Nikki's face, and Nikki gives her a slap and says she will never forgive Brie for being such a horrible person, I guess. And there you go. I called this segment, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. But it was like an advanced bad acting class because Nikki was just terrible here as far as the acting. And I thought that the explanation was a little overwritten. I feel like the explanation should have been, and I think, Doc, you even mentioned this when you were predicting that this might happen, or at least hinting that you thought that this might happen, that the reason for Nikki to turn on Brie is because Brie quit, and Nikki was the one who was left to take the beating for like a month. Mm-hmm. But they didn't mention that at all. All Nikki had to come out and say was, Brie, you're my sister, and you quit. You chose your husband over me. You chose your husband over your blood, over your family, and you left me to get thrown to the wolves every week for a month. And then all of a sudden you decide to come back for your big SummerSlam match? Well, fuck that. That's all Nikki had to say, and I think everybody could have related to that. But instead, it was all Brie. She always picked on me. She always teased me for not being married. Blah blah blah. I just felt like they had a really solid explanation for the heel turn, and they didn't even mention it. And it was all about about sister stuff. I don't know. What'd you think?
I actually thought it was pretty good because I got a little nostalgic watching it because it reminded me of when Owen Hart turned on Bret because He pulled the selfish card because he goes like, "You're so selfish, Brett. You're so selfish. The spotlight's always been on you, and everything always happens to me. They thought you were better up in Calgary, and you got better grades than I did, and you left me high and dry to defend myself here in the WWF. You're so selfless, Brett." You know, I mean,
that is an awesome Owen Hart.
And he would spit on himself at that moment. So, but that's what kind of what it took me back to when they were fighting, because they are real siblings, and it's rare to have siblings fight like this. So it's interesting. They know each other so well, and I thought Nikki really gave Brie a hell of a slap. She slapped that bitch to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess like you say, they're sisters, so backstage, Brie's probably like, just fucking hit me. Like, I'm sure they've hit each other before. I mean, Christ, if you've ever had a sibling, I'm sure you fought. Yeah, that was a hell of a slap. Whew. So I guess the way that they're going to use Nikki to sort of extend the Brie versus Steph feud, because now Brie and Nikki can have their thing for a month or two, and then I guess hopefully they'll get back to Brie versus Steph, because the only problem with Steph being so strong and going over Nikki and going over Brie and getting Nikki to turn on her like this is that it's going to have to be one hell of a blow off at this point. I mean, when Steph gets her comeuppance, it's going to have to be epic, because I mean, other than getting thrown in like a mud bath a couple of months ago by Vicky Guerrero, Steph has been just fucking ruling the universe, and nothing. And I mean, even her getting arrested went away like after a day, and she got revenge on Brie for that before they even had the match. So Steph is going to have to. She's being put up way, way high. She's going to have to come crashing down, and I hope they have something really awesome planned for the blow off to, Steph the Authority angle, because she's being built up really, really high here. Next, the first match of the night, it was a tag team match. I always like when they start with a tag team match. And it was the Wyatt family, Harper and Rowan, versus the Big Show and Mark Henry. And I thought this was a decent match. It was fun to see the big guys, all four guys in the match are pretty big guys, kind of throw each other around. And it ended up with Big Show getting the knockout punch on both of the Wyatts, and Mark Henry hitting the world's strongest slam on Eric Rowan for the pin. I don't know about having the Wyatts lose clean on TV like that. I was kind of thinking they would want to continue to save them for something, especially since Show and Henry have been around so long. You figure they would want to use the old guys to make the new guys look good. But I thought it was a good match.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. It just shows, the Big Show, Mark Henry are still going, and I love what they did for Mark Henry at Raw that night. Mm-hmm. I know even though I saw the little prop by the Big Show, I have to give huge props to Eric Rowan, because he body slammed Big Show, and that's no easy feat.
And that got a nice reaction from the crowd too.
It did.
Yeah,
it did. No, I don't think I agree. I don't think the Wyatts really should have lost this match. I would have still pushed them. Hell, they're just coming off a feud with the Usos, so you got to keep them there, pushing them as a strong team, not just a team that you've recently thrown together. And even though they're big, huge guys and they're veterans, this team has really just come together. So they're not as gelled.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, it seems like they're getting ready they're starting Henry on a singles program.
Yeah, it appears that way.
He has that confrontation. We'll get to it in a minute. That confrontation with Rusev later in the show, and so so Henry and Big Show win a tag team match against the Wyatts, and it doesn't look like they're even going to be doing anything as far as tag team. It's just a little weird. Like, why would you sacrifice the Wyatts to make Henry look strong, when you could have just done that some other way? Next, here comes Seth Rollins, and he's cutting a promo backstage with Renee Young when Dean Ambrose subjects him to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. He dumps a bucket of water over his head, and when Rollins turns around, shocked, Ambrose just shrugs and goes, "What? It's for charity, and hits him in the face with the bucket. I thought that was awesome.
Oh man, yeah, that was
awesome.
That was beyond. I mean, I popped for that. I absolutely marked out when he threw that bucket in his face. It was good for them to do something with the ice bucket challenge on Raw that night, because a lot of the superstars have been doing it. I myself have done the ice bucket challenge. I've been trying to share my video on our Wrestling with Wrestling Facebook page, but it won't let me because I've also challenged you.
I'm going to do it at some point. I'm going to do it at some point soon. I just need to figure out exactly when, because someone else challenged me too. So.
But those guys, I tell you, every single time they get close to one another, they turn up the heat, and it looks like they are literally. They absolutely hate each other. The heat is absolutely there, and they beat the. It looks like they're just beating the living shit out of each other. They take hard bumps against the walls and go through things that are sitting around the set. It's insane. These guys.
Yeah, they are awesome. The Rollins and Ambrose has just been really, really terrific. And in retaliation for Ambrose attacking Rollins in the next segment, we see Triple H booking a match between the two of them for later tonight, and it's one of those WWE app votes where the crowd can pick what the stipulation of the match is going to be. Next is a non-title match between Natalya and the new Divas champion, Paige. And, of course, we all know what happens when champions wrestle in non-title matches on Raw. That means they're going to lose the match. And that's exactly what happens here. Paige opens the match with a little promo talking about how she still loves and respects AJ. And then the match finally starts. And Natty leads Paige through some nice chain wrestling, and Paige keeps right up with her. I think if these two had more time and were given more of an opportunity, they could put on a hell of a match. But it doesn't happen tonight because they've barely gotten started when AJ comes skipping out to her music. And, of course, I don't even need to tell you the rest. Paige is distracted, and Natalya rolls her up for the 3 count. So that's what happens. That's what happens when champions wrestle in non-title matches. And then post-match, AJ gets on the microphone, and she kind of throws Paige's promo back in her face, basically says the exact same thing to her, but says that instead of dedicating a match to Paige, she wants to dedicate her whole life to Paige. And she jumps in the ring to shake Paige's hand, and Paige, bails out and walks up the ramp. And as AJ leaves, the crowd again chants for CM Punk. And I say again, fuck everybody who chants for CM Punk while AJ is in the ring. It's not cool. You're disrespecting the performers. You're not accomplishing anything, because it's not as if CM Punk is going to hear you chanting for his wife on Raw and go, oh, I got to go back. You're just being assholes.
You want to see CM Punk take up hockey.
Exactly. And look into the crowd. You'll see him at your fucking hockey game. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, so the Paige AJ thing is continuing apparently. Their match at SummerSlam wasn't bad, but they did that hair pulling thing, which was kind of weird, where they were like pulling each other's hair out, that I just thought was superfluous and distracting.
I feel like their weaves, pulling their weaves
out. Yeah. It's like what's the fucking they're two really, really strong wrestlers. Just give them fucking 10 minutes and just let them wrestle. That's what I want to fucking see. They could put on a really good match, I think. Next, before the next segment, they announce what the stipulations are going to be, what the options are going to be for the vote for the Ambrose versus Rollins match. And for those of you who were voting at home, the options were a no-holds-barred match, a falls count anywhere match, and a no DQ match. Now, the first and third... Drum roll, please. The first and third options are literally the same match. What is the difference between a no-holds-barred match and a no DQ match?
That's what I said. Exactly what I said. I as soon as I saw the options, I went for option B, and I'm like, that's going to be the winner tonight. It's going to be option B.
Yeah, and it was. Yeah, no, drum roll. It was the falls count anywhere match.
Yeah, because you get 1 and 3 in B. So you get what I mean. Exactly. You get A and C and B. So that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's so anyway, the next Triple H and Stephanie come out. And Steph has changed out of her Steph shirt, unfortunately. She's just wearing a regular black dress now. And they enter to present the new WWE Championship belt to the new champion, Brock Lesnar, and they unveil the new title. They're basically the same as the old belt, but it has the new WWE logo on it, and they no longer have the word champion on the main plate. It's just the logo. And out comes Brock and Paul Heyman, and he takes his belt. There's a "Thank you, Lesnar" chant, and Paul Heyman cuts his usual awesome promo, putting Brock over as, basically like a legend killer, not saying that term exactly, but that John Cena has been on top for longer than Hulk Hogan was on top, for longer than Steve Austin was on top, for longer than The Rock was on top, and Brock Lesnar killed him. Brock Lesnar conquered him. It really puts into perspective how significant that match was and how unheard of it is for someone like John Cena to take the kind of a beating that he took from Brock Lesnar. And there's a cute bit, I thought, where Heyman talks about how because of his attitude and his never say die commitment in the match last night, John Cena actually earned Paul Heyman's respect, but he didn't earn Brock's respect. He said Brock doesn't care. As far as Brock is concerned, the greatness of John Cena is irrelevant. Dead is dead, and John Cena was conquered at the hands of Brock Lesnar, and the same fate awaits all future challengers of Brock Lesnar. So a great promo from Paul Heyman, really as if Brock wasn't over as a fucking monster enough already. Heyman really puts it into words, puts it in perspective, and makes Brock seem like just an invincible, like the Incredible Hulk. Like, how could anybody possibly challenge Brock Lesnar for the title?
Suplex, repeat.
Oh,
Suplex, repeat. And that rhyme with with his mantra, what Brock Lesnar always says, and he kept on changing the ends of it every time. I thought it was perfect. Paul Heyman was hot on that mic Monday night, but he always is, man. Anytime you put a live mic in Paul Heyman's hands, you're going to enjoy his promo. I mean, he is a genius with that mic. I'm telling you, it's got a golden tongue.
Yeah, he's one of the best promos ever, and especially when he has something to work with. Like, I mean, I guarantee you, I'm sure they had words for him. I'm sure they gave him like an outline or a script or something backstage, because I think that's just how they do things now. But I mean, after that match last night or the night before, Sunday night, you wouldn't have had to tell Paul Heyman a single thing. You could have just handed him the microphone with 5 minutes notice and said, okay, go out and cut a promo for 5 minutes about Brock and Cena last night, and he would have knocked it out of the park, just like he actually did. Because, I mean, you give Paul Heyman something to work with, a guy like Brock Lesnar who has been put over so strong, a match like that at SummerSlam, and he's the greatest talker ever, as far as that sort of thing goes. And I just incredible. I mean, to think of all the years when he wasn't around, like to think of all the years when Heyman was away from the company because him and Vince couldn't get along or whatever, and it's just amazing that he's been, ever since he's been back, since he came back with Brock and then he worked with Punk and now he's back with Brock again, he has just been doing the best fucking work of his entire career, cutting these amazing promos. And it's like, God, and he hasn't even been around for years. He just walks right back through the door and instantly he's the fucking best promo in the company.
Yeah, I mean, and he's perfect for those guys that, like Brock Lesnar, you don't want to put a mic in his hands because he's a Scott Steiner on the mic. You know, you don't know what he's going to say, and you can't have your hands on the censor button at all times. So yeah, I thought Ryback, when him and Curtis Axel did their little run there, I thought that they would be perfect because, again, Ryback's not great on the mic, and Curtis really hasn't proven himself on the mic yet. I mean, I guess he's okay, but he doesn't really talk that much to be a superstar. Paul Heyman would have made those guys superstars. That's the thing. He sells the guys he's working with, and he makes them top-notch guys, even if they're not, the run-of-the-mill top guy that you see in the WWE, like John Cena. I mean, Brock Lesnar is not your typical WWE wrestler. He's a suplex machine, and he's a ground and pound, kick your ass kind of guy. And I absolutely think that it's effective. It's like when Yokozuna was the champion back in the day, because there was this big sumo guy who's really going to pin him. He's super powerful. He's got this ability to kick your fucking head off, and he goes straight to the top, gets the championship. And I think the only thing that derailed Yokozuna's great run was someone called Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's funny. I was thinking about Yokozuna during that SummerSlam match. I mentioned it when I was talking about SummerSlam a minute ago. That when Hogan put Yokozuna over, it was with all these gimmicks and all this horse shit. And when Brock went over Cena, it was just a total fucking slaughter. And imagine if Yokozuna had been allowed to go over Hulk Hogan like that in 1993. I mean, he would have been unstoppable. Next on Raw was a rematch of the Intercontinental title match from SummerSlam, The Miz versus the new champion, Dolph Ziggler. Massive "Let's Go Ziggler" chant from the crowd to start. People are very happy to see Dolph with that title. Dolph is still selling his knee from the night before, and Miz kicks him in the knee to really, move that selling into high gear. The whole match is basically Dolph on one leg trying to keep Miz at bay while he crawls around the mat. Miz gets the figure 4 on at one point, but Dolph makes it to the ropes. And I love the way Dolph does that rope reach. He's really good at that, where he does it 2 or 3 times and he just barely falls short, and then he finally reaches through and grabs it. There's just lots of little things that Dolph Ziggler is doing that are making him a great worker. I mean, he really, when you think of it, this is a guy who used to be one of the Spirit Squad, and now he just has such a great understanding of how to sell and ring psychology and how to work as a babyface, because he's been a heel so long. He can work as a great vulnerable underdog babyface. He's just amazing. And anyway, the match ends up getting a count out. Miz wins by count out. Dolph is stuck on the floor for a 10 count. He can't get back in the ring in time, and Miz wins by count out. And then post-match, Miz tries to attack Dolph, but Dolph turns it around and hits the zigzag. And so he loses the match, but he kind of comes out on top with a moral victory, and it looks like they're setting these guys up to go again that Night of Champions. I was afraid they were gonna put the title back on Miz tonight, that it was just gonna be like a one-day title reign for Dolph, and I'm really, really happy they didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm glad that Dolph Ziggler came out and when he got on the stick, he actually thanked the fans, because he thanked the fans that he's where he was today, which is absolutely true, because they never gave up on him. They've been pulling for the Dolph Ziggler to do something better for a long time. Finally, it's like that Daniel Bryan effect. When they finally give you something, you got to show your appreciation. And I think the fans are happy right now. And with a heel as your top guy, heavyweight champion, you can't really flood the whole title scene with heels. Even though you're tag team champions, which is pretty insignificant, and I don't know what the hell Sheamus is doing. Oh, and I do want to mention that I don't count the pre-show match, because that's not part of SummerSlam's live feed. Right. So I've decided from here on out I will not support Roman Reigns whatsoever, because if it wasn't for Roman Reigns' defeat on Randy Orton, it would have been the perfect SummerSlam ever, because all the bad guys would have won.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Of all the matches on the main show, the only one where the good guy went over was Reigns versus Orton. Yeah.
I was pissed off.
Yeah, the heels almost ran the table.
They did. But still top notch by all the heels out there that own SummerSlam. That's why it ranks up there with one of the best SummerSlams I've seen, because you don't really see it that much one-sided.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, you have to, if you want the heroes to eventually come back and triumph, you have to have the good guys put them down. Like it's what we've talked about a bunch of times on this show, and what a lot of wrestling fans and a lot of wrestlers talk about all the time. Everybody knows this, that the drama is in the comeback. You put the good guy down, and then the good guy comes back up. And the WWE isn't always, depending on who we're talking about, the WWE is, sometimes they forget that one or both of those parts. Like with until recently with John Cena, it was that he just never went down, and and until recently with a guy like Dolph Ziggler, it was like he never got to come back up, and now hopefully they're correcting that. The thing about Ziggler with the Intercontinental title, guys who are our age and a little older remember when the Intercontinental title was a really special title, when it was held by guys like Randy Savage or Ricky Steamboat or Mr. Perfect or Bret Hart. It was like a really special title. It was the title that usually the best wrestlers in the company were fighting over. It was like the workers' title. And it hasn't really been that for a while. And with a guy like Dolph Ziggler, who is like conspicuously a great worker. I mean, is a guy you can't help but notice that he goes out there and gives everything he has in every match. And they have an opportunity with a guy like Dolph to leave that belt on him for a little while and to rehabilitate that title and have him defend it every month in great matches where he sells his ass off and eventually comes back and overcomes the odds and holds on to the title. To me, if I were booking WWE, that would be, I would pencil Dolph Ziggler in as Intercontinental Champion from now until people get sick of him, because that is so easy to do. Just give him a different guy every month or every 2 months if it's a really hot feud, and just say, go out there, here, you got 10 minutes, 15 minutes, fucking tear it up. Dolph goes over, and I mean, I hope they do something like that, because I mean, Dolph is a guy who can really bring that title back to its glory days as a workers' title.
Yeah, here's the way I would do it. If I was the WWE, I'd put the belt on Dolph Ziggler. I'd finish this run with The Miz, because I do not like this run with The Miz. And most thing I don't like about The Miz right now is that stupid ass coat he's wearing down to the ring.
God.
I mean, most people want to throw paint on fur. I want to throw paint all over that fucking thing. It looks like he's wearing a backwards hoodie or some shit.
It does look terrible.
It's ridiculous looking. You're not that big of a Hollywood star, and I think a Hollywood star would dress a little bit better than you do, The Miz. But I would finish this. I would finish this feud with The Miz. Then I would probably line up someone like Cesaro, go through a feud with him. I would line up someone like Rob Van Dam, go through a feud with him. Line up someone like Stardust just for a little while, going for it. Before you come all around and get Bray Wyatt, when you're ready for him, get Bray Wyatt onto Dolph Ziggler and make that a great feud. And that's how the title will come off of him eventually. But I'd give him like 4 or 5 great feuds up till, say WrestleMania, where Bray Wyatt will get a hold of him.
I could buy that. I could get behind that. Yeah, I just think Dolph is the guy to do that with. If they ever decided to start giving a shit again about the Intercontinental title, now's the time to do it, and Dolph is the guy to do it with, because he's just terrific, and the fans are behind him. So there's no, I mean, it's so easy. Like, why don't it just save yourself some struggle, save yourself some time and effort, and just leave Dolph have that belt for a few months. Next was Jack Swagger versus Cesaro. It's hard to believe these guys were tag team partners just a few months ago. Swagger versus Cesaro. The story of this match is that Swagger is still selling his ribs from the match with Rusev at SummerSlam, and also Zeb Coulter is not there because he was attacked by Rusev. So Zeb is out, and Jack is hurting with his bad ribs that are taped up underneath his singlet. And not a bad match. Not a kind of a short match with Jack kind of selling the ribs the whole time. There's a really nice spot where Swagger hits a Swagger bomb, and it looks like he leaps about a quarter of the way across the ring. Like Cesaro he doesn't take the bump like right near the corner like they usually do when he does the Swagger bomb. So Jack has to kind of lay out and fucking fly backwards a little bit. Really nice spot. But it ends up with Cesaro actually getting the win here. He gets the pinfall with the neutralizer. The idea being that Swagger's ribs are just too badly hurt. He just couldn't quite, get up and win the match. And then after the match, Bo Dallas, my man Bo Dallas, comes out, and he gives Jack Swagger a pep talk, and he says, "Look, Jack, sure, your manager got beaten up, and sure, you let down 318 million people when you lost the flag match to the Russian Rusev, but you can get it all back if you just believe." So,
should be pretty good.
Of advice.
It was nice to see Bo come out. Now there's a little thing going around saying that Bo Dallas, you think your man, Bo Dallas takes the Ice Bucket Challenge before every entrance.
Yeah. Ooh.
But it was nice to see Cesaro get a match, a win over Jack Swagger. It was nice to see him get a win, and
yeah.
It was an understandable loss on Jack Swagger's part because of passing out, not losing, passing out. So lost, but he passed.
That's
out.
Right. That's right. He didn't tap out. He passed out. Exactly.
So, and in the analogs of history, and you can ask Stone Cold Steve Austin, that should make you a bona fide superstar, because that's what happened to him.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
And I'm also glad that they remedied the whole situation of Zeb Coulter staying in the damn ring for too long. Because as soon as I saw that again, I was glad that Lana did the crush thing and Rusev went over and kicked him. Because that's what he should have done that last time that I complained about it.
Yeah, I like that too. Because, yeah, if they do that too many times, you start to wonder, like, well, if Zeb's going to be in the ring every single time, like, why the fuck isn't Rusev just killing him? You know, so they actually took care of that, and you know, and it was a nice easy bump for Zeb. You can tell that he didn't take a really hard kick or anything, and he was able to just kind of roll over and play dead, and I thought it was all fine. Next, there was a backstage promo with Chris Jericho. He's interviewed by Renee Young, where he just kind of cuts a random generic promo about how, you know, basically losing to Bray Wyatt hasn't gotten him down. He's gonna, you know, he's gonna come back because he still has the fire inside of him, driving him to be the best, and his fans are still behind him. So just kind of a generic vanilla promo by Chris Jericho. I get the feeling they're setting him up for something there. I guess I would imagine apparently he's leaving after the next pay-per-view for a while again. His run is up after this next big show. So I guess they're doing him versus Bray again. I would imagine. So I don't know exactly what they're going for with that promo, but
Bray's got to destroy him this time. So I said he's got to win at SummerSlam, and then the match right before Chris Jericho takes his leave, he destroys him.
Oh yeah, and hopefully that. I mean, there's no reason for that not to happen because we know Jericho's going away again. So you know, yeah, Bray should fucking murder him. I mean, I'm not thinking it's going to be like Brock versus Cena, but Bray should put him down.
Yeah, I mean, like almost like the Undertaker would do. I mean, not to this effect, but he, you know, when he took Stone Cold Steve Austin and put him up on the big crucifix, just some type of showmanship, a spectacular thing, something to show after a match that would effectively put Chris Jericho out for a while.
Yeah, I would love to see that. And then whoever Bray's next feud is, he has to win that one too. Like he still has some you know climbing to do to get back up to that really hot spot that he was in a few months ago. But I definitely think he can get there, and I want him to get there because I still have a huge amount of love and respect for Bray Wyatt. I think that's just an awesome. I think he's a great guy, and he's a great gimmick, and he can be a top guy. Next is a six-man tag match. It's Randy Orton and Ryback and Curtis Axel versus Roman Reigns, Rob Van Dam, and Sheamus, who, by the way, is the United States champion. I think people who work for the company have forgotten that Sheamus is the United States champion. I think if Sheamus, you know, went home and just left the U.S. title at his house and forgot it and came to Raw without it, nobody would even notice. Like nobody would be like, Sheamus, where's the U.S. title? Nobody fucking knows. Sheamus is the only one who knows that he has the title at this point. Nice little six-man tag match here, I thought.
I thought this was really good. I thought this was a really good, happy all-around six-man tag match because the fans were just into everybody. Even they were into Randy Orton. They were really huge on Ryback, and because you know you're guilty by association. Same with Curtis, and of course you have your good guys. I would say the man that got probably the least chanting in this whole matchup would have been Sheamus, our United States champion.
Right. And which is understandable because they haven't given Sheamus anything to do since he won that title. I mean, it's not even really Sheamus's fault, and it's certainly not the fans' fault. Like he wins the title, and then he just kind of hangs around, you know. Yeah, I thought it was a good match, and the crowd was chanting for Ryback. Ryback was kind of the hometown boy here. He's billed as being from Las Vegas, and really until Ryback tagged in, that's really all the crowd wanted to see. You know, Orton was in there doing his stuff, and they were chanting, "Feed me more," and "We want Ryback." And Orton finally tags in Ryback, and the place goes nuts. And Ryback has a nice little segment there where he kind of takes over and does his shit. And then Reigns comes in, does his usual stuff. Superman punches to Axel, Superman punches to Ryback. Yeah, really, really good match. Nice, exciting finish where everybody comes in and they do this sort of Bonzo Gonzo thing where everybody hits their finishers on somebody else, and it all ends up with RVD hitting the frog splash on Curtis Axel to get the pin. So yeah, really, really fun six-man tag match. I really liked it too. And have you noticed, at least as far as his matches, not necessarily for his promos or anything else, but for his matches, Randy Orton has been getting babyface reactions the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and he's been catering a little bit.
He's been catering, definitely.
That'll happen. It'll happen. You cater to the crowds. I mean, and it might be time for something different. I mean, he could definitely fit into that babyface Steve Austin role where he's the Viper, and of course Steve Austin was the rattlesnake, and we can bring Jake the Snake back, and we can have a nice little he can manage the three of them. We just have have a big thing. No, I'm just saying that. Cool. I think Randy Orton could go to a level where he could face off against the Authority and become that Steve Austin type character where he's still a bad guy. He does all his bad guy things. The crowd's going to get behind it, but in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a perfect explanation for it too, because the Authority has always, ever since Triple H and Stephanie put the title on him at the end of last year's SummerSlam, they've treated him like a punk the entire time. Like, they've never shown him any respect.
He has yet to get his championship rematch, and from what I hear, John Cena has already called out his rematch, and he's going to get it.
Yeah, so Orton has a perfect reason to turn on the Authority. Like, there's no reason for him to still be pals with Triple H and Stephanie, because they haven't really done anything for him since he cashed in his Money in the Bank against Daniel Bryan a year ago. So yeah.
And now that they're behind Brock Lesnar and backing him, there's no point in sticking around. It's just like, you washed your hands of me, so up yours. I'm going to go and be the Legend Killer. He mentioned being the Legend Killer again on Monday night.
Yeah, he did.
Flair, which I thought was interesting. I thought it was interesting. And I thought it was more interesting that Ric Flair kept his mouth shut pretty much afterwards.
Yeah, I think they're kind of telling Rick about that. Rick has been very well behaved the last couple of times he's been on TV, and I get the feeling they're scripting him really tightly, because like, he was on the pre-show of SummerSlam, and he didn't really have a whole lot to say. Like, he would say, like, I noticed Renee Young would let him get out like 2 or 3 sentences, and then she would jump right into the next thing. Like, she wouldn't let him get on a roll, because when Rick gets on a roll, it becomes the Ric Flair show, and nobody else has a chance to get a word in edgewise. I feel like they want to have Ric Flair around. People like to see Ric Flair. He's a legend. He's the greatest of all time. But they have to keep him kind of on a leash, because he'll just fucking run away with the whole show if you let him.
Oh yeah, there's a perfect example of this on the WWE Network. You can look at one of those roundtable shows that they sit around and talk about. But they have one with Ric Flair on there, and I'll be damned if he just doesn't yada 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 the whole damn show.
Yeah, he's terrible on that show, because he wants to talk over everybody. Yeah, he's not good in that environment. Ric Flair is great. When Ric Flair is the center of attention, Ric Flair can be as good as anybody. Even at his age, he can still turn it on. But when he has to work in a group, when he has to play well with others, he's not so great at that.
Yeah, even when the Four Horsemen were together, he was the front man.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. He did well in that, because it was understood that the other 3 horsemen were there to watch his back. Next, Bray Wyatt is standing in a black void somewhere, cutting a promo on Chris Jericho, and he says that he warned Chris Jericho about last night, and he says maybe Chris Jericho is right and Bray Wyatt doesn't have a soul. Maybe Bray Wyatt is just here to collect other people's souls. And then he declares himself the new face of salvation and does the follow the buzzards thing. So I think this and the Jericho promo are basically just kind of placeholders, just to keep both guys in our minds and on TV while they get set up for whatever probably the last stage of their feud is. Next up, another non-title match. Again, this is an example of what happens when WWE books champions in non-title matches. This was the Usos, the tag team champions, versus Goldust and Stardust. And it's exactly the same as, really, it's a clean win, but it's the same result as the Divas match earlier, where the champion loses the non-title match, presumably to set up the next title match. Stardust ends up pinning one of the Usos, I believe it was Jay, although it's hard to tell, with a sunset flip. So Goldust and Stardust win. Stardust pins Jay Uso. Interesting match. It seems like the crowd was a little confused, though. The crowd was a little quiet, like maybe because it was 2 babyface teams. They couldn't quite figure out who they wanted to cheer for. Plus, the Usos seemed to be kind of working heel a little bit in it. So it didn't get a very good crowd reaction, but it wasn't a bad tag team match. What did you think of it?
I spent most of this match telling myself, all right, Jimmy has his paint on the right side of his face, Jay has his paint on the left side of his face. Okay, that's Jimmy in the ring right there. All right, okay, I got it down now. And then, of course, a day later, I'm like, okay, which one's which again?
Exactly.
But that night I had it down. I was like, Jimmy had his paint on the right side.
If I can't mark one or the other like early in the match, I completely lose track. Like because usually Michael Cole will call one or the other when the match first starts. He'll be like, okay, and we're Jey Uso starting out against Goldust, and if I can catch that, I'm like, okay, that's Jey, and I can keep track of it. But if I lose track of it, I'm like, oh fuck, which one is this guy? The other thing,
except for the face paint, except for the little bit of face paint, everything on them was identical. I mean, the armband was on the same arm and everything.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Everything was exactly the same. The other thing I wrote down about this match was, and again, it's something. There's really no point in even bringing it up anymore because it happens all the time. But the announcers ignored most of the match and spent a large portion of the match bickering with each other about Michael Cole's Twitter account.
I remember JBL calling him out on that.
I just have no idea.
But they did play it off. They did play it off in a way where JBL was giving him shit for checking his Twitter. So, as in, like, you should be commentating this match. Like, nothing's more important than Michael Cole's Twitter account.
What the fuck? I've never looked at Michael Cole's Twitter account. What could possibly be on Michael Cole's Twitter account? I guarantee he's probably got like 200,000 followers just because he's Michael Cole. But what the fuck could possibly be on Michael Cole's Twitter account?
I'm going to have to start following a lot of the superstars, and we'll do the top 10 goofy-ass tweets of WWE superstars this week.
Yeah, exactly. How many retweets were there? Or like the corporate account would post something, and like all the fucking mid-carders who never even get on TV retweet everything. Mm-hmm. Next, Rusev and Lana come out. This is the bit I mentioned earlier about setting up Mark Henry for a singles push here. Rusev and Lana come out, and they are interrupted by Mark Henry, who reminds us that he represented his country in the Olympics as a weightlifter.
Yes,
and
sir.
He says that his proudest moments were seeing his country's flag and his national anthem played when he competed in the Olympics. And it just makes him sick to see the Russian flag raised at SummerSlam. So he offers Rusev to give him a personal guided tour of the Hall of Pain. And then Rusev attacks him, and they roll around for a little bit, and it ends up with Mark Henry hitting the world's strongest slam and following it up with a splash. So these guys are going at it. Next, this is Rusev's next program, I guess. I don't know if they're just kind of letting the swagger thing lay for a while or what, but they made Rusev look kind of weak here. I was surprised that
he laid flat on that.
Yeah,
he didn't move, wiggle, or anything. He just laid out flat when he hit him with the slam.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that Rusev is going to come out on top with the feud with Henry. But it's odd to see them letting people get so much on Rusev,
Mm-hmm. Shouldn't have blasted him anyways. It's like at least I'd have kept moving and rolled out of the ring. I'd have powdered out as soon as he hit the slam and just kept on moving, and then Lana gets you and takes you on up the way. But let me point out this to everybody. Mark Henry, Jack Swagger, Zeb Coulter, the announcers, they complain about the Russian flag being dropped. People in this country complain about the "Don't Tread on Me" flags, and people in this country complain about the Dixie flag, the rebel flag. This is why America will never ever get an Olympics ever, because Americans can't stand to see other people's flags raised in our country, and the world knows that we are pretty much biased to just our own damn selfish needs. So they should just give up. We will never ever get an Olympics in this country. So
that's a good point. I mean, because when you think about it, I mean, Rusev and Lana are jerks, right? And Russia and the United States have some differences in terms of their foreign policy, and there's been a lot of tension there lately. But what was really so horrible about seeing the Russian flag raised after that match? Like, Rusev won the match. That was the stip, that he got his flag raised. Like, you know, even JBL was like, it's the most horrible thing I've ever seen. It was the darkest day in the history of the United States. I was like, dude, a guy won a match and got his flag raised. Like, I understand we're not supposed to be happy about it because he's a heel, but Jesus, you're kind of going overboard, aren't you?
You know? I stood up and was like, oh, y'all
yeah. Nikolai Volkov couldn't have sung it any better.
It's like, you know, that's why I have huge respect for Nikolai Volkov.
Exactly.
He's got probably one of the biggest ass chests I've ever seen on anybody. It's like just broad.
Yeah, he has a literal barrel chest. It's like he swallowed a barrel whole, and it's just there in his chest. Next, they announced the stipulation for Ambrose versus Rollins. As I mentioned earlier, it is Falls Count Anywhere, which is the perfect stip for these guys in their feud. It's a shame that they didn't do this stipulation on a pay-per-view and give them 20 minutes, because, I mean, or even longer, because this was a really, really fun match. This was the main event of the show, Falls Count Anywhere, Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins. I thought this was a terrific match. I thought it was fun as hell. There was an awesome spot right at the beginning when Ambrose first throws Rollins over the crowd barrier into the crowd, and he's about ready to follow him into the crowd, and he pauses on the top of the barrier, and he cracks his knuckles like, okay, here we go. I thought that was awesome. There's little things, like I mentioned with Dolph Ziggler earlier, the way he does the rope sell with the figure four. Dean Ambrose does those little things that you might not even notice, but it makes him feel like a real person and gives him personality. And, man, when he cracked those knuckles before he jumped over the barricade to go after Seth Rollins, I was like, oh, fuck yeah, buddy, here we go.
He's doing this breakdance move here recently where he's like, and he snaps himself into place.
Yes. He's just awesome. I just love him. He's my favorite guy on the show. And this was such a fun match. There were some really cool spots. There was an attempted superplex that was reversed by Rollins into a sit-out power bomb on a pile of steel chairs. That got a 2 count. It's kind of a big spot for a 2 count, but it was awesome. It really brought the crowd into the match.
ECW! ECW!
Yeah, they were chanting for tables the whole time, and they eventually did do some table stuff toward the end. There was a "This is awesome" chant at one point. Kane came out, as he did in the Lumberjack match on SummerSlam, and kind of got involved. Ambrose almost got the pin at one point. He hit his finish on Rollins and was gonna get the 3 count, but then Kane pulled Ambrose out of the ring and got involved. And it all leads up to Ambrose getting curb stomped through a pile of cinder blocks. Kane had disguised a pile of cinder blocks under like the timekeeper's table, and he throws the table aside, and there's this like pile of like 9 or 10 cinder blocks just stacked up 3 high on the floor. And they put Ambrose's head on it, and Rollins curb stomps him through the cinder blocks. They were obviously fake cinder blocks. That's really the only part of this that I didn't like, because I thought it looked phony and cheesy, because the cinder blocks break into dust, which if that really happens, Dean Ambrose is dead. I mean, if you kick somebody in the head hard enough to drive their fucking head through cinder blocks, then they're just fucking dead. But other than that, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was tons of fun, and it was awesome. I love to see these guys main eventing Raw and getting to close the show like this. I thought it was terrific. What did you think?
I cannot believe I'm paying $9.99 a month for the bullshit I saw Sunday night when I can get the bomb diggity fucking best match I've seen in years on Monday Night Raw for free. What's up with that shit? These guys went out there and they just took it home. I swear, if I had to sit through a 2.5-hour boring as fuck wrestling program, if they guaranteed to put a first caliber match like this at the end of every program, I would sit through 2.5 hours of boring ass television to watch that match.
Yeah,
because it was so good. So I went back and had to watch it a couple times. It was phenomenal. Those guys just took it one step and further and above. And right now I don't even know who, because these guys are good. These guys are going to be the stars. Roman Reigns is going to be forgotten, because these guys are proven time and time again that they're actually are better at throwing the crowd into a frenzy than Roman Reigns is.
I agree. I agree. And I also want to mention Dean Ambrose does do the stretcher job at the end. He is carted out on the stretcher at the end of the match. And I think Dean is going to take some time off. Apparently he's going to film a movie. He's going to take a few weeks off, so that's why they did the stretcher job.
Yeah. And that's another reason I hate this shit, because like when Ricky the Dragon Steamboat got his larynx crushed, we had no freaking clue, because the internet wasn't around those days, so that was a lot easier to mask where a wrestler was. So we didn't hear from Ricky the Dragon for weeks. But when we hear as soon as Dean Ambrose is going out, the reports come up that he's taking time off so he can go film a movie. See, which makes it just shows once again that all of it is entertainment, Yeah. And it drives me nuts sometimes.
Yeah, but you're right. As far as Rollins and Ambrose being the future of the company, even more so than Roman Reigns, I'm with you 100% on that. And I have nothing against Roman Reigns, but as I said last week, if he doesn't really start turning it on when they put the spotlight on him, if he doesn't really start fucking going for it and swinging for the fences, he's going to find himself where Sheamus is in 3 or 4 years, as a guy who has a good look and who the company really likes and just kind of is just there, And once people get tired of seeing Roman Reigns just for being Roman Reigns, that's what he's going to end up being if he doesn't fucking kick it into high gear. Whereas Dean Ambrose is fucking killing it every single time. Every time they give him anything to do, he's saying, he reminds me so much of Austin, of CM Punk, of Daniel Bryan, of Dolph Ziggler in a way, in the sense that he's the kind of guy who, he's like, I'm going to be so fucking good, you're going to have to push me.
He's hungry. He's just hungry for more.
He's hungry. Yeah, he's hungry. And so is Rollins. And especially since they've been working together these last couple of months. Absolutely. Every time they get within 5 feet of each other, there's just electricity, and they're going all out and making it as good as they can possibly make it, and saying, I mean, obviously the company likes both guys. They don't need to be this hungry, but the fact that they are this hungry shows that they're destined for great things in the future. To have that attitude of like, it's not just, okay, I better not screw this up. It's no, I'm going to fucking take this and make this better than anybody ever thought this could be. And I'm going to be so fucking good, they're going to have to put me on top. I'm not going to give Vince or Triple H or whoever's making the decisions around here any fucking choice. They're going to have to put me on top. And that's what I get from Dean Ambrose. And I get a lot of that from Seth Rollins as well, from both of them. And it's just fucking phenomenal. It's so much fun to watch. And I'm not a fan of Falls Count Anywhere matches in general. I prefer things to happen mostly in the ring, and most of this was in the ring. They did a kind of a brawl around the crowd, and then most of it took place in the ring. A lot of stuff in the ring for a Falls Count Anywhere match.
Yeah, I thought that too. It's like, wow, you're in the ring a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, Dean Ambrose is one of those guys, and this feud with Seth Rollins is one of those feuds where a Falls Count Anywhere match makes sense, and it's really exciting. Like if you do almost any gimmick match can be really boring if you just throw two people into a gimmick match for no reason. But if you build it up so that gimmick match makes sense as a blow-off for these two guys feuding for a couple of months, it can be really awesome. And these two guys in a Falls Count Anywhere match makes perfect sense, because that's what they've been doing anyway. They've been fucking tearing each other's teeth out every time they get near each other. So of course they should have a crazy brawl through the crowd and backstage and around the ring and all these fucking crazy shit that they do. It's just awesome. And Dean Ambrose is like the anarchist character who will just fight you wherever he finds you. Is just awesome. I thought it was great. I agree with you. It's such an awesome match and such a great ending to Raw.
I think the only thing they left out of it was they didn't go into the men's bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah. That's old school right there.
Oh yeah. Now the one complaint I will make is, and it's not in terms of performance at all, it's just in terms of booking, is if they knew that Dean was taking time off after Raw, I would have preferred if he would have won one of the two matches. Either win at SummerSlam or win at Raw before Kane jumps him and they do the stretcher job. I would have kept everything else exactly the same, but I would just had Dean win one of the two matches, because Dean's, he's on fire, but I feel like he needs to get back on top in terms of winning matches. You know, so hopefully when he comes back from his time off for the movie, they'll have, you know, one more big one with Seth Rollins, and he can win that one before moving on to whatever happens next. But that's really a minor complaint, because just watching it, it was fucking awesome. I mean, as just purely as a fan, it was terrific. It was one of the most exciting things they've done on Raw in a long time. Well, before we go any further, before we get to our Legend of the Week and our network recommendations, I have a few random topics I jotted down here that we can talk about for a minute or two. The first one is related to what we've just been talking about, actually. The rumor has it that the rematch between John Cena and Brock Lesnar will be at Night of Champions, at the very next pay-per-view. What do you think about that, Doc? Do you think it's too soon after John Cena allowed Brock Lesnar to basically kill him? I mean, should they really be doing Night of Champions with the rematch this soon?
Well, we're gonna hear from John Cena next week, and he does that never give up attitude. He has that, so, and he's almost a Superman. The guy is built like a brick shit house, so his recuperation ability should be pretty good to at least in his feeble mind come back and try to get his belt back. But what he doesn't know is he's not at 100%, and Brock's just going to kill him again.
You know, I hope that's what happens. I'm afraid that what they're going to do is they're going to completely fuck this up, and they're just going to have Cena win the belt back. I hope that doesn't happen. I have a terrible fear that that's what's going to happen. I hope that that's not what happens. I hope that they do not shoot themselves in the foot again, like they almost did with CM Punk, like they almost did with Daniel Bryan a bunch of times. You know, you have Brock as like this fucking unstoppable monster. Please don't have Cena win the title back after a month. That would be insane. I know that Brock.
I'll make a deal with you. If Cena wins the title back, then we do a special program, and it's based on all the moments in the WWE's past that has made us go, oh, God damn it, I ain't ever watching this shit again.
Yeah. Exactly. And we know when we say it that we're going to keep watching this shit. But, yeah, that's a good idea. I would love to do that. Because I just... I know that there's concern, you know, with if they keep the title on Brock, because Brock doesn't work a full-time schedule. He's only contracted for a couple of matches a year, and if they book him extra, it's like super expensive. I mean, I totally get that. I think that they could write him out fairly easily by just having Triple H come out and say, you know, as we all know, Brock Lesnar works on a special contract, and he is only contracted to wrestle, let's say, 4 times a year, and because of that contract, he is, you know, we're waiving the 30-day title defense clause, which would make Brock even more of a heel because now they're treating him special. You know, I feel like they can.
Or put it, it's in it's in the contract, it's in the new rules as the champion that it's only required to, you know, like any belt in sports, it's only required to be defended at all 4 major pay-per-views. And that's it. Yeah. SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, you know, those 4 major ones that we've always had, that's where the belt needs to be defended. That's where the championship matches, everything else. That way you can put some emphasis on these other fucking belts that you really sadly forgot about.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways that they could get around Brock being the champion but not being around very much. And then again, it would make Brock's matches feel more special. It would make Brock into even more of a heel because he's the champion but he's never even around. I mean, I just anything but having Cena win the title back in a month. I mean, after that beating that he took at SummerSlam, to have all of that be thrown away in a month, that would be so disappointing. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And if they go the other way, and if they do like just a rematch from SummerSlam and Brock just fucking kills him again, then I'm like, I mean, then you know what? All that fucking around with Daniel Bryan a couple years ago, forgiven. It's totally forgiven if Brock fucking kills Cena 2 months in a row.
But that does knock Daniel Bryan down the totem pole a good bit, because there's a lot of people moving up and filling that void since he's been gone. I mean, a lot of different options.
Yes, but you know what? And I mean, as a Daniel Bryan fan, I really hope that when he does come back and he's healthy, that he is able to get right back into the thick of it. But at the same time, I mean, it's in a way it's good because that's what fucking happens. Mm-hmm. You know, the top guy gets hurt, and I mean, you got to know a guy like Dean Ambrose is, hearing that, oh shit, Daniel Bryan's going to be out till January. Oh really? Dean Ambrose is one of those guys who's like, well, gee, I hope he has a spot when he comes back. Because Dean's like eyeing that spot for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and Steve Austin was the same way. Steve Austin, as he talks about very openly on his podcast, he says, man, when I was around, I wanted to be number one. And I didn't give a fuck. I had friends. I liked a lot of the guys I worked with. But I was number one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he was number one for so long. And why when he was number one, he was so far ahead of everybody else. Because he had that same attitude of like, I'm going to be the star of this fucking show. Okay, the other topic I had, another WWE related thing. There has been again, these are all rumors, and who knows if any of this is even true at all. But there was a rumor going around in the internet wrestling community for the last couple of weeks that there is a disagreement between Triple H and Vince McMahon over what the main event of WrestleMania 31 should be. Apparently, rumor has it, Vince wants the main event to be Brock Lesnar versus The Rock, and Triple H wants the main event to be Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. So what do you think about that, Doug? Which of those, assuming those are the two matches that are the options?
Oh, come on now.
Which one would you rather see?
Why we got to run this like a political election? Two options.
It's a two-party system, Doc.
I want to take a third option, damn it. If I had to choose one, I'd go with Roman Reigns because I don't want to see The Rock come back. I think it's not worth it. I mean, I know he loves the business, but you make so much money in movie land. The Rock is a bona fide Hollywood star. There's no need to come back and do anything like that. I mean, they're just really throwing money. It doesn't really feel the same when they get like a Hollywood star that would come up out of their territory and perform at WrestleMania. It feels like someone who came from wrestling, went out and became a superstar, but he can still come back and wrestle. You can't. It doesn't feel the same, and I don't think that the media outlets really, they want to cross those lines to get all the advertisements and free media appearances from The Rock. But I don't think it works the same with him because he is a wrestler. That's where he come from.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Rock coming back for a match. I think. Since they did, Rock versus Cena 2 for the title, I think if Rock does come back for another match, it should just be like a special attraction match. And if they, maybe Brock doesn't have the title by then. Maybe the champion is somebody else, and the main event is a totally different match for the title, and you can do Brock versus The Rock just as a special attraction. It doesn't have to be for the championship. But yeah, I agree. Brock as a part-timer having the title is one thing. But having the main event of WrestleMania be part-time wrestler Brock Lesnar defending against part-time wrestler The Rock, that wouldn't feel right, especially with all these guys
annual wrestler
in their ass.
Yeah, part-time versus annual wrestler.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not even a part-time wrestler, a guy who comes in for one match. Well, let's move on in our last 20 minutes or 10 minutes or so and talk about our Legend of the Week, Doc, because Legend of the Week this week is when you said that this was going to be the guy last week, I thought this was a great pick. This guy's was one of my favorite guys. So tell us about our legend this week.
Okay, our legend this week was born in Marietta, Georgia. He stood his stats. He stood at 6 foot tall. Even he weighed in at 226 pounds. He was trained by none other than Bully Bob Armstrong because it was his dad, and I'm talking about none other than Mr. Brad Armstrong. And here we go. Brad Armstrong started out in the National Wrestling Alliance's Gulf Coast territory. That was the Southeastern Championship Wrestling in July of 1980, at the age of 19. He was a face, or a good guy, due to his good looks and a superb wrestling ability. He feuded with Jerry Stubbs and Tom Pritchard during his stay there and won the NWA United States Junior Heavyweight Championship. Armstrong moved to the NWA's Georgia territory, that's Georgia Championship Wrestling, in 1984, where he feuded with Tom McCartney, Ted DiBiase, alongside his father Bob, and White Lightning Tim Horner. Armstrong took great advantage of a mix of technical wrestling and explosive speed in his style. Armstrong held the NWA National Tag Team Championship twice that year, once with his father and once with Horner. All three returned to the Southeastern Championship of Wrestling in 1985, before eventually joining the NWA's Mid-Atlantic territory, which we all know as Jim Crockett's promotions, in late 1986. Armstrong feuded with Jimmy Garvin, locked horns with the Four Horsemen, and teamed with both his father and Horner at various times. In 1986, Brad went on his first tour of Japan for All Japan Pro Wrestling. He took part in a tournament to determine the first World Junior Heavyweight Championship. He made it to the finals, but lost the match and the title to Hiro Saito, and I apologize if I got that wrong, on July 31st. Armstrong then moved to Cowboy Bill Watts Mid-South Wrestling, which was Universal Wrestling Federation, in 1986, where he won the North Atlantic Heavyweight Championship from Ernie Ladd in 1986, losing it to Ted DiBiase just a month later. In early 1987, Brad reunited with Tim Horner, forming an exciting tag team known as the Lightning Express, winning the UWF Tag Team Championships from future superstars Sting and Rick Steiner. They then feuded with the Sheepherders, later known as the Bushwhackers, to whom they eventually lost their belts. The Lightning Express then went back to Jim Crockett Promotions after the UWF was bought out by Crockett, but were not pushed, and Horner left for the WWF in late 1988. Armstrong bounced between single wrestling, temporary tag teams, and sorting out personal issues for much of the next few years. And I hope you caught those last few words, because I couldn't even hear myself from that motorcycle. Just
I heard you. I know.
In May of 1991, Brad started wrestling in disguise as Bad Street. It was originally known as Fantasia, but due to a lawsuit from Disney, they had to change it, so it became Bad Street. Bad Street was a masked wrestler with the Fabulous Freebirds alongside Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin. They won the WCW World Six-Man Tag Team Championship, while Hayes and Garvin also held the WCW United States Tag Team Championship. Brad never revealed his Bad Street identity on television. As a result, he was able to interfere on behalf of both sides during the Freebirds' win over the Young Pistols for the said vacant U.S. Tag Team Championships at Super Brawl I. Firstly as himself on behalf of the Pistols, which included Brother Steve, then later as Fantasia on behalf of the Freebirds, all within the space of the same title match in September of 1991. Soon after that began a tour in Japan for New Japan Wrestling, where he would tour between the years of 1991 and 1996. Later that year, Armstrong was given another masked gimmick, Arachnoman, who, you remember Arachnoman?
I remember Arachnoman.
Who bore such a strong resemblance to Spider-Man that Marvel Comics threatened legal action, causing WCW to quickly drop the character. On July 5th, 1992, Armstrong won the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship by defeating Scotty Flamingo. We all know him as Raven.
Yeah.
He soon injured his knee during a tour of Japan in a match against the Great Muta in Sapporo, and was stripped of the title at the Clash of the Champions 2 months later. He returned a week later and remained with the company until 1995. In 1995 to 96, he left WCW and went over to Smoky Mountain Wrestling in Knoxville and the United States Wrestling Association in Memphis. Armstrong won both the USWA Heavyweight title, defeating Billy Jack Haynes, and the SMW Heavyweight Championship during his stay. After SMW folded in November 1995, Armstrong wrestled regularly for the USWA until February of 1996, where he returned to WCW. In December 1995, he toured Europe for Otto Wann's Catch Wrestling Association. Armstrong eventually returned to WCW in February 1996. At Slamboree, Armstrong unsuccessfully challenged Dean Malenko for the WCW World Cruiserweight Championship, despite a highly technical match, before leaving in November 1996 to go back to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Upon his return to WCW in summer of 1997, Brad had developed a heel turn, changing his looks, sporting short hair and a goatee, and had developed a bad attitude and mean streak. By the end of the year, he developed a string of losses, which he claimed was blamed on the Armstrong curse. In 1999, he was repackaged as B.A., a member of the No Limit Soldier stable. After the group disbanded, he embarked on a feud with Berlin, who attacked Armstrong's brother Sky and badmouthed the United States of America. The feud ran through Halloween Havoc, where Armstrong defeated Berlin. After Havoc, Vince Russo forced Armstrong to find a gimmick. He was later given the gimmick of Buzzkill, a takeoff of his brother Brian's gimmick, Road Dogg. As Buzzkill, Armstrong used an entrance theme similar to the one used by the New Age Outlaws in the WWF. The gimmick was less successful due to the fans feeling it was an imitation of the Road Dogg persona, as well as a lack of awareness that the two were brothers. He injured his knee in March of 2000 in an accident backstage at WCW's Saturday Night Main Event, where Armstrong got run over by Juventud Guerrera in Psychosis, severely injuring his knee. After going through knee surgery, his WCW contract expired in 2001, and he left the business for a couple years until returning to the independent circuit in 2003. On September 12th of 2006, Armstrong signed a contract with World Wrestling Entertainment and began wrestling at the ECW Brand House shows and acting as a trainer to the young members of the roster. In December, around the time rumors of ECW's commentator Taz leaving the company began to circulate, Armstrong began to make sporadic appearances as guest commentator on the brand. A three-man booth originally for a single match on the December 19th episode before expanding to a full show on January 9th did not last, and Armstrong resumed his role as producer. While working as a producer for WWE, Armstrong continued to wrestle for various independent promotions for the Southeast. At the same time, Armstrong worked at a health store in Marietta, and he was also volunteering at Shiloh Hills Christian School in Kennesaw, ranging from field trip monitor to assisting with car duty on campus. On November 1st, 2012, Armstrong was found dead in Kennesaw, Georgia, in his Kennesaw, Georgia home after seeing his physician the previous week for an undisclosed medical issue. His former tag team partner and best friend Tim Horner speculated that Armstrong died from a heart attack. Armstrong was survived by his parents, brothers, his wife Lori Sprans, whom he married October 17, 1998, and his daughter Jillian. Eulogizing Armstrong, Jim Ross described him as one of the more talented in-ring performers I've ever worked with, one of the most underrated all-time greats ever in the business. His finishing moves was a rushing leg sweep, and some of his signature moves, of course, was the diving crossbodies from drop kicks, drop toe hold, planchas, scoop slam, sunset flips, and a 3 left-handed jab, and some right-handed jabs too. It would always be followed. It's a 3 left-handed jab followed by the right-handed jab. I think Dusty Rhodes does it with the elbows.
Yeah.
But that came as a request by one of our fans at the Wrestling with Wrestling website. If anybody here has any requests for me covering one of the Legends of the Week, and I'm going to actually pick the new one this week. Already, I have my choices picked, but that's my tale to take when it comes to Mr. Brad Armstrong, a great wrestler of his time. He gave us some great matches, and he will be missed. And we can see some of his bloodline still flowing today when it comes to people like Road Dogg.
Yeah, man, Brad Armstrong was a guy who should have been a huge star just based on his talent, and never quite made it to that level. Because in terms of just pure talent as a wrestler, from bell to bell, as Jim Ross might say, he was as good as anybody. He was phenomenal in the ring. He and the Great Muta had a match on an episode of WCW Saturday Night, I think in 1992 or 1993, I'm not sure, in the early 90s somewhere, that was almost entirely improvised. Like I think all they had was like just, the finish, and they went out and just called it in the ring for about 20 minutes and had an awesome match. I mean, like an amazing match. And if that match had been on a pay-per-view and had been the result of like a major feud that they had that was being blown off, like I think people would still be talking about that match today. Like that match was an amazing display, and he was just terrific. And it's so sad that he died young, and it's so sad that he didn't ever get to that level of stardom that he deserved, because he was one of the fucking all-time greats and one of my favorites. So your network recommendation this week, Doc, is related to Brad, isn't it?
It certainly is, but first and foremost,
Yes.
there are a lot of tragic deaths in the wrestling business, and if you'd like to know a little bit more about some of them, I would recommend going to your local bookstore and picking up by Scott Keith, The Dungeon of Death. It's called Chris Benoit and the Hart Family Curse, but it goes through a lot of different tragic deaths in the wrestling business, and it kind of breaks down their stories a little bit and has some detail in it from some of their friends. It's got some great pictures of Von Erichs and people. It actually started making me think about people who had passed. It was like I definitely want one week when I get a picture when I talk about Mr. Rude there, because that guy That guy had the bomb diggity mustache. Look at that. That's a Fred Mercury mustache if I've ever seen one.
Yes.
But yes, I do have a network recommendation. It is wrapped around our Legend of the Week, Brad Armstrong. I am recommending WCW Starrcade 1986. I just want to go over a few highlights of that show. You had the NWA World Heavyweight Championship match between Ric Flair and United States champion Nikita Koloff. You have the Road Warriors versus the Midnight Express in a Skywalker's match. You have Jimmy Valiant versus Paul Jones in a hair versus hair match. You have Rick Rude versus Wahoo McDaniel in an Indian strap match. And you have Brad Armstrong, our legend, versus Jimmy Garvin. Yeah, and he has Precious at ringside. So check that out. That's actually a very good card. It's got some really good matches in there, and there are actually a lot of more brutal matches and a lot more title matches. I mean, I looked over this card and it's like the majority of them were for one of the fucking titles. They had so many belts running through that promotion at the time. It was insane.
Yeah, Starrcade 86 is a good show. It's a really good show. My recommendation is a little bit more recent. It's playing off of the theme of Brock Lesnar winning the WWE title. My recommendation is actually the show where Brock won his first WWE title, and it was also a SummerSlam. It is SummerSlam 2002. The main event of that show was Brock Lesnar, the young next big thing, fresh off winning the King of the Ring tournament that summer, challenging The Rock for what was at the time called the WWE Undisputed title. Brock won that match, not quite as convincingly as he beat Cena this year at SummerSlam, but still pretty convincingly. Sent The Rock away for a few months and won his first WWE championship. The show is also famous for the being the occasion of Shawn Michaels' comeback match. He had been out for over 4 years, ever since dropping the title to Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14 with a bad back. Shawn Michaels came back and began the awesome sort of second half of his career. He wrestled Triple H in a really awesome no-holds-barred match on SummerSlam 2002 that they went something like 40 minutes, and it was Shawn's first match back on TV in years, and they just tore the roof off the place.
Yeah, not like you noticed he had been gone that long with that match. That was insane.
It was a great match. And
I like to call that the resurrection of Shawn Michaels when he came back. You know, he thought his career was dead, but it's the resurrection of Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, and the psychology of that match was awesome because you always they had told you over and over again on TV ever since Shawn had gone away that he had a bad back. So everything he did in that match was like you're watching it, at least when you watch it the first time when you didn't know what was going to happen. It's like, oh God, like he's going through tables and he's taking bumps on the floor and all over, and it's like, oh my God, his back. It was just amazing. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Doc, who is our Legend of the Week for next week?
Well, it's not legends, sir. It's legends. Yes, I do want to celebrate a few of our fellow wrestlers who are no longer with us. So next week's Legends of the Week, if I was to do this, who would it be? Who would it be? But I'm talking about none other than Mr. Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge, the Public Enemy.
Oh, nice. Excellent. And Joey Styles would have been proud with that intro.
Thank you.
All right, that's a good one. I like doing the tag teams. Public Enemy for our Legend of the Week next week. Legendary original ECW greats, so that'll be great. Well, we are out of time. We're actually a couple minutes over time, but who really gives a shit? It's our show. We can go as long as we want.
That's right. We came in late. We're going to leave late. We don't like it. You can kiss our fuzzy little asses, huh?
That's right. Yeah. And you know what? You don't even have to pay $9.99 to see this shit. So
that's right.
I mean, you have to if you want to see the shows we were just talking about, but to see this, you can see this shit for free. So thanks as always for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week to do this once again, to talk wrestling for another 90 minutes or so. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you checking us out on our Facebook page and interacting in the comment section. And Doc, thank you as always, my brother.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure of mine to sit here and talk with someone that has a love for wrestling as much as I do. I mean, it's amazing that we can sit here and just... My wife, her mind is blown that we can just, between the two of us, sit here and talk wrestling this long.
Oh, my God. My wife is the same way. I'm like, God, you guys have no idea. If you just take two wrestling fans and put them on a porch with a case of beer and come back in 6 hours, they'll still be talking about wrestling.
It's true.
You can talk about it all, if nobody stops you or you don't have anything else to do. Wrestling fans will talk about wrestling all fucking day. That's just the way it goes. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Doc, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time, everybody.
See ya.